This is 2022, but the last week, what are you planning for? You got all these goals, but why not double down on your goals and make sure that in case something ever did happen to you, that's taken care of too. Like that legacy piece. Let's just get that out of the way. Let's not talk about it, but let's make sure the foundational pieces that we put in place for your financial future, for whatever your goals are, for doubling your income, selling 3 more policies and all these, let's make sure that before anything else, if we're taken out of the equation, if me, Sean, and Steven are not here anymore, that our families are taken care of. I'm not trying to make this all about money, folks, and I don't want to glorify or vilify money at all. I simply want you to understand that it is an important factor. It's not quite air, but it's pretty close, because we can't survive without that tool. And this one's extra special because Steven and I get to close the year out with you. We get to talk a little bit about year-end planning. We get to talk about setting some goals. And most importantly, we get to talk about planning for the storm, which I think is really appropriate for today. Because as you can see, I'm in my basement. This is my little home lounge. Some of you have been here when we did the experience here, and some of you will be here for the program in January. But I can't go to the office. The office is closed down. Much of Buffalo is still closed down because, well, if you've been watching the news, we just got hit with a blizzard. And this wasn't just any blizzard. You know, we get a lot of snow here in Buffalo. It's nothing new for us, but this one legitimately was the equivalent to the blizzard of 77. So I was born in 1977. I've only heard rumors about this crazy blizzard that they had in 1977 where houses were covered and people would open their front door and all it was a wall of snow, or people would try to unbury their cars abandoned everywhere. Well, you know what? It's just like that. Where I'm at in Clarence, New York, we got about 4 feet of snow with drifting. My backyard, well, I can't walk through it. It's about 6 feet of snow. And just to get our driveway plowed, you can't plow that much snow, folks. You need to get one of those front loaders, those big tractors you see parked in parking lots, or maybe the ones you see in rock quarries. Yep, that's what did my driveway. So when you talk about the blizzard of 2022, a lot of things come to mind. Lack of preparation is one of the first things I like to think about. Not only lack of preparation is, if you could go back in time and plan for something, what would you have done different? And not only that, what other things should you have planned for the worst outcome that could happen, which I'm very sad to report, but I believe there's been just under 100 deaths, you know, throughout the country. But I know here it's about 60 deaths and counting from blizzard of I almost said 77, the blizzard of 2022. So that's a really sad thing. But how much of that could have been avoided with proper planning? How much of that could have been avoided with the right things being done, you know, the right kind of messaging out there? I think some of the executives made some big mistakes because this storm came a lot earlier than most knew. And if it wasn't for my wife having almost the sixth sense, or the sick sense, however you want to do it, and she wouldn't let me go to work on Friday, because if I did, well, you would have been hearing from me all weekend long, and I would have missed Christmas with my family, as so many other families did. A lot of people are stranded at airports, stranded in hotels. A lot of people still haven't made it home here. That's sad. But proper planning could have prevented a lot of that. And I want to parlay that over to the end of the year. Okay, we're in the last week here. We got New Year's Eve, and then we got the big New Year's, and boom, there we are, 2023. So Steven, I'm going to kick this over to you. Like, what are some of your big things that you're planning for 2023?
Well, that's a great question. So we have, you know, as far as the businesses go here, you know, I mean, obviously Private Money Club is leading the way with a lot of new features and benefits, and, you know, what that's going to look like. So a lot of focus will be on growing Private Money Club and just continuing to spread the word of how to take back control of your money and solve the money problem. So just as from a company standpoint, I mean, we are doing, as example, we're doing 23 live events, a part of a Money Multiplier tour this year, 23 different cities, 23 different weeks, which is something new we've never done before. We have 3 or 4 events coming up, live events we're going to be doing with Private Money Club, as well as a big annual event. Our masterminds, the first one we're doing out of the United States of America, which is sold out, unfortunately, for anyone that doesn't have a ticket yet, but that's at your place in Mexico, Chris. So just kind of taking all of, here's what we're doing and piecing that together. But it all starts with, where do you want to be at the end of the year? And I was talking to Shauna about this earlier, actually, about Private Money Club and, where the vision of that is. And, something that's always worked for me in the past and something I definitely want to spend more time on, is, okay, here's where we want to be in 5 years from now. And then let's build that backwards. How are we going to get there? And so to me, that's always helped me a lot. Like, where do I want to be in whatever amount of time, and then build that backwards into, let's say it's a 1-year goal. Okay, what's that look like each quarter leading up to that, each month leading up to that, each week leading up to that, each day leading up to that, each minute leading up to that. And so the way that I make that happen for me personally is I work very well off of lists. So if I don't write something down, it probably is not going to get done. And what I learned a long time ago, and it's really helped me, is not only is it kind of holds you accountable when you create lists and stick to them, but it allows your brain, it allows your mind freedom to not focus on what needs to be done, but focus on actually getting it done. Because you're not thinking, okay, what else do I need to do? What else do I have to do to get there? You have the list, you have it written down. So that way you just follow that list, and whatever is on that list to accomplish, it gives your mind full access to be able to focus on that one step to make that as best as you can to move on to the next one. And when you start finding out ways to free up your mind to open it up to other stuff, it's amazing what happens. So those are just some little things that I personally do.
I love that. The thing I like most about that is just how articulate it was, and how you talked about reverse engineering something, and I think that's something really important as we go into 2023 that we need to do is, everybody, it's cliche to say, oh, what are your goals? What's your goal for 1 year, 3 year, 5 year? Although those are important, most of you can tell us what that is, or at least I hope. Actually, why don't we test that right now? Just your number one goal for 2023, put it down in the chats real quick. Let's just see what you have for goals. And as these goals start to pop up there, Stephen's going to be watching them because I can't see the chats. I want to then take one exercise, and we'll kind of kick this training off with, if that's your goal and that's what you want, have you reverse engineered that? Have you determined what that's going to take? How many dials you're going to have to do that? Like, what is it going to take to actually make those goals happen? So let me just pull this up. Let's see, 5 mid. Yep, there we go. More family time. Okay, double my passive income. So let's use Mark Perry. I'm just going to pick on that one, and Stephen, then I'll let you pull up a few. Mark wants to double his income, right? I think is what he said, right? Double his income or double your passive income. You remember what that said? Was it passive income? But it doesn't matter.
Passive income.
Okay, so you want to double your passive income. I don't care if that's you want to double your household income or your passive income. What does that mean? So first off, we got to figure out, all right, what number is that? Let's just say it's $200,000. To double your income, that means we need to go from 100 to 200. What would that take? Then you can go a bunch of different ways. Well, if I got to do that, how much does my money need to earn to double? And how much more money do I need to put to work to have my passive income double? What deals do I not need to be in to actually make that happen? So reverse engineering that would be something really important. If that's a 1-year goal, that's a lofty goal, but not an impossible one. There is no impossible, but setting a goal to double your income, if any of you, that would be your goal, you have to then figure out, what does that take? Does it take one extra deal per week? Does it take, making your money go to work at a rate of 3 or 5 points more than it is? So you have to really figure that out, because if you just say, I want to double my income, it probably won't happen, because you need to then take that and you need to figure out what are the steps that need to happen. And then you need to execute on that. A lot of us have big goals at the beginning of the year. I mean, just look at the gyms, right? Shauna could tell you best, like, look at any gym out there. When is the busiest time in the gym? The first month. January, because everybody sets their next year's goals, the 2023 goals. I'm going to lose 10 pounds, 20 pounds. I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to do this. And they go hard. They get their membership and they go to the gym and they work hard for a month. Then all of a sudden something happens. They get the flu, they get sick. They go on a family vacation, they come back and well, it just falls apart. And then by February, there's less people in the gym. By March, there's less people. Heck, by June, when it's time to put the bikinis and the swimsuits on, or July in certain parts of the country, well, some of those people didn't quite hit their goal. Was it because lack of effort? Partly. Was it because lack of planning? Yeah. But a lot of it was lack of commitment and lack of action taking. It's easy to set a goal. It's easy to start a goal, but it's difficult to finish a goal. And it's much easier when you take a goal, and I'm just using doubling your income, and you break it down to weekly steps, right? And you could do this with the gym too. Like if I go to the gym 2 times per week at the same time, 7 a.m. every day, because I know that that's easy, I can make that happen, but you got to build that habit. So the same thing, if you were to double, if it was dialing the phone and making more sales, if it was buying more rentals, if it was this, then you got to spend time to execute that. And I think that's where a lot of people fail on their goals. I know that's where I failed. I always come out with goals and I always write them down. I have them on my wall the entire year and I look at them. And, you know, part of the other problem I have is I write down a lot of goals. Like I have a whole page full of goals and I hit some and I don't hit others. We can't accomplish every one of our goals. So we got to prioritize. What is the most important goal? And what is a goal that you'd like to have happen, but maybe isn't most important? So Shauna, you're really good at this stuff. Can I just bring you up to the spotlight since you just turned your camera on and talk a little bit about this? It's action taking. And you've seen this with a lot of our clients and, you know, people that get around, like, this is the number one thing. They start the IBC policies, they get their whole life, you know, done, but we already know the numbers. A lot of people, they get on the call, and out of the people that get on the call, only about 40% of them actually do the call. That's a lack of commitment. And then from there, when it gets to the very end and the most exciting time, their policy's ready, it's ready to be funded, and they don't answer the call. Like, what are the reasons why people set goals, they get excited about something, and then it doesn't happen?
Something I've kind of taken away from everything that we're trying to accomplish right now, like we've got in like our company, we've got a January meeting coming up, and we, you know, all individually are trying to come up with, you know, certain things to bring to that meeting. And it's kind of like hard. And I feel this way around January too, is like, to me, actually setting a goal for the new year is hard. Like, I know that it's something that you should do, but I don't, like, when I like sit and think about it, I just like don't know where to start. And it helps to go through goal setting with people. Like if you just had a goal for me, I like, it could be something, but I know that Gabby's working on it, Steven's working on it, you know, Andrew, you. So I think it's important to also, you know, have things like this Wednesday webinar to anchor you in every week, where you're with people that are going to keep that up for you. Another thing that we're trying to implement in the new year for the policies specifically, like you mentioned, is people get really excited from learning about infinite banking through the webinars. They know what's possible, and then it somehow like maybe feels like you're alone in it. So one thing we're going to try to do just to help everybody along is just like have kind of like a weekly little onboarding call that's just for those people who started a policy like that week. Like, so if like we have like Steven takes a whole bunch of calls that week, Gabby, Joseph, and they get people who are like, yes, I want to be my own bank. We're going to kind of pull you guys all together at the end of the week and be like, you're not alone in this. I know it's new and funky for you, but you're part of, like, maybe your real family and the people around you don't know what you're doing, but we do. So we're here for you. And I just think that we need more time together and to be with people who can remind you that goal setting is important, remind you what's possible. I'm always inspired by everybody in the community, like Tess specifically. I just like, she is, the way she takes action and I see her taking action, it makes me know that I can and should also. Like, I'm always like inspired by, like, to me, I'm like, I can't have an excuse because Tess is doing all these things, you know, and like, so what's my excuse? So I'm just super appreciative to be a part of everybody here. And in my real life, I really only interact with like 8 real human beings, to be honest. Like when I went to Disneyland, I got sick from not COVID or anything, but I got sick, I think, from literally being around to like a bunch of people. I'm not like used to it or something. And I'm super grateful for these virtual, like the people who we connect with through the webinars, through Private Money Club, like the members and all that stuff, because it's really important to me and like how I grow as a person. So I'm still determining my goals for 2023. I know that it's going to be awesome, but I don't have them on paper just yet.
I love it. There's some really good key takeaways there. You know, your community, your network, we all heard it, your network equals your net worth. But I mean, like really like think about that going into 2023. I just saw Mary put up something like, don't talk to this about, don't talk to your relatives about this, very true, because they just want to squash it and bring it down. I don't really talk to anybody. Matter of fact, like I talk to only people that are in this network. And, I think one unique thing about
Chris,
yes, go ahead,
real
Stephen.
fast on that though, on family, like it's almost though also if you've told your family in the past about lots of different goals and dreams and things, and you've never made it happen, then they might just have the approach of, oh, you're just talking shit. You're never going to actually do that because you've never done it in the past. So if you really want to I think accountability is huge. And that's why you write goals down, is for the accountability aspect and tying it back to the community where you can share with people that are going to support you. But if you want the real true accountability, and then tell your goals to the people that you think are going to shit on you and prove them wrong. And if you're the kind of person that maybe you need that drive to prove them wrong to make that happen for you. So don't just blanket, never share with, like, maybe those are the people you need to share with, because they're going to be able to kick you in your ass that make you go out there and do it. But sorry, go ahead.
No, I think that's absolutely correct. And it does for me, when someone tells me, like, I'll just use my dad. Like me and my dad are mending our relationship again, but looking back in the past, my dad never really supported anything. And I know part of the reason why I pushed so hard to be successful back when I had my skateboard, snowboard shops or any of my businesses was to prove my dad wrong, because he said I couldn't do it. I was going to fail. It was never going to work. And then I made it work. But like, I think that's important. And I think sometimes those family members, like that angst they give you, that doubt they give you, yes, maybe it is because you never follow through with anything that you say you're going to follow through with. So this time when you're talking to them and they say, oh, that will never work, then make it work. And then come back to them and said, hey, remember that one Christmas or that one New Year's we were together and you said that's a stupid idea, it would never work. Did you look out in the driveway and see the car I'm driving? I'm going to get all the money back for that car, because I applied one thing that I learned and I never stopped applying it. It's just like silly things like that. I mean, how cool would that be? And maybe it's not a car, maybe it's your bank account. Maybe it's not your bank account. Maybe it's your house. Maybe it's whatever your goal is. Imagine like telling somebody like, I'm going to do this. And they poo-poo your idea. They crap all over it. And then the next year you're back at the same place because, hey, listen, family and everything is what a lot of you, like the only time you see them is during the holidays. So then you see them during the holidays because you took action. You were accountable and you took that challenge of them saying you couldn't. Then you say, hey, check this out. Remember you said this couldn't work. This would never be a good thing. That's a scam. That would be a bad idea. Well, check it out. It's sometimes that's the best thing. And that's why we write our goals down so that my favorite part, and Shauna, you've seen me do this on my wall. I'll put all the goals. I think last year, one of my goals was to skateboard more. They're not like massive goals. One year was to make sure that my entire team, made $70,000. And, it was so cool. I got this big red marker, this giant fat tipped red marker. And I love when I know the goal gets hit. And I went around and I asked Shauna, I asked Gabby, I asked, just about everybody on the core team. And, it did. I took it and I just draw a big red line through it. Skateboard more, draw a big red line.
Satisfying for sure.
Yeah, it's fun to do that, right? Because you cross that off your list. You no longer need to focus on that because now you're on to the next goal. That's accountability. You're holding yourself accountable, but sometimes that's not good enough for some of you. You need to hold somebody else's like negativity. That's your accountability meter. That's how you judge your successes based on what they told you couldn't do. Write that down. Hey, Uncle Johnny said that there's no way this infinite banking thing is real. And then you just write that on there. Goal, prove Uncle Johnny wrong. And then you take the big fat red marker and you cross it off.
I love that. The small goals, the small ones are almost more important than the big ones because the big ones can get lost in time. I mean, just think back to the beginning of this year and we're going into 2023 now. It's like, where the hell did that time go? Like seriously, like one of my goals was to be in really, really good shape for my 40th birthday, which is in 2 weeks. And I accomplished that 0. So, so now I'm going to move it to, okay, I'm going to start when I'm 40 and I'm going to get in good shape. And I'm actually going to make it happen this year because I'm starting to write down how I'm going to make it work. Because I'm looking through these comments over on the right-hand side, like goal for 2023, set up for financial freedom. Well, that's great sounding, but what does that mean? So break that down, very specific. What is financial freedom to you? And then let's start exactly how are we going to get there? Like make my first real investment and begin making new income streams. Okay, like, but how? Like what kind of income streams? Like what is that?
How much of an income?
Right, like break this, learn new ways to create passive income. Well, that's such a broad thing to say. Like, let's really break that down. Like all these goals, I love them, but we got to get specific with it, right?
Like the book, The Secret, there's like other kind of books like that. And there's one called The Magic, and it's like a 28-day thing where you like do like, 10 things you're grateful for like every morning for like a month. And then you're at the end of the month, you've like got 300 things that you're grateful for, like whether that's, running water or anything like that. But I've done that a few times, and like you write down like your top 10 desires. And I remember I always keep my notebooks and stuff. And years ago, one of the things that I wanted was through work is like sports tickets or something, when our organization, like it was not even like on our radar. You know what I mean? Like being like, I want to be, get a freaking hockey tickets or something like through work. And then like this past year, like just write them down, like whatever that feeling is, because even like this past year with that one Buffalo event, we went to the Bison's game and we got a suite. So like a desire I had 3-4 years ago that I wrote about, and we weren't doing anything that could even really get us there, in one way did occur. So I think you should also focus on the feelings and even just little things like that. And then maybe not put the timeline on it, like it needs to be 2023 goals, but just like on your radar, these are things that you want to accomplish.
I love that. And Stephen, you wanted to get in shape, but then I put that post up on Facebook inviting anyone to a free training to come to my house and I'll teach you how to shovel. Like I had all sorts of special shoveling techniques, like you could, the shoulder throw, the snow plow. I was going to teach you everything, man. That would have been the first step to getting you in shape. And no one showed up except for this guy and this giant tractor. And he taught me a thing or two. He said, hey, if you want to learn how to shovel big helpings of snow, get yourself a giant front loader. And it worked great. I learned something, but you weren't there to get in shape, man. I would have had you out in my driveway shoveling for hours. You would have left feeling like Superman. See, it's about action, Stephen, action taking.
I've been jacked. Well, I was out when you were sending me those messages. I was out on a boat pulling up crab legs, eating stone crab fresh out of the water. So that wasn't bad either.
Very, very nice. So now let's try this again. Now that you heard from Stephen and you heard from Shauna, everybody take your goals that you did. Okay. You all put your goals on there. Let's try this again. I want you to think long and hard about that goal. And I want you to break it down into a very tangible thing. So like Mark, I'm just going to pick on his, double his income. How much per month extra does that mean, Mark? And write that down and double your passive income. So double my passive income by doing X, Y, and Z per month. So each one of you that had a goal, learn something new. What do you want to learn new? You want to learn infinite banking? Great. Learn how to use my infinite banking policy to buy cars. Learn how to use my infinite banking policy to loan money through Private Money Club. Let's try that again. So as the comments come in, take what you put and put it down as very crystal clear. There's one, right? 3 policies by January 15th. That's a solid goal. Here's another thing I'm gonna talk about. So just because that motivated me to think this way. So with Private Money Club, when we set that up, it's a lofty goal. Like the goal of Private Money Club is to sell that company in 7 years for $350 million. Think about that. Like that's a huge goal, right? And it's like great to say, it sounds sexy, sounds cool, but what if then I had to reverse engineer that and go backwards and say, what would that take? It's going to take X amount of, members per day. It's going to take this. It's going to take a lot of things. I see Shauna laughing about that. I don't think I've ever said that publicly. She's probably like, what? Wait, you should have told everybody that. That's okay. I'm transparent. I'm always putting it out there. But you know what we do is like, I know the metrics every day. So like a nerd, every single day I'm looking at it and then what I'm not doing is I'm looking at the goals every day that we have for Private Money Club for members. And then I'm saying, okay, well, this day we missed the goal. That day we exceeded the goal. What did we do on that day that helped us exceed the goal? We did a training that day and we talked about Private Money Club, or we did a training and we taught people how to use their policies for lending on Private Money Club. And that resulted in 1 or 2 or 3 new memberships, right? And then in your mind, and you write it down, you say, okay, this worked. So now you've got something that worked to get you toward that goal. The goal is a daily goal because we got to hold ourselves accountability. Then that daily goal turns into a weekly goal. And then that weekly goal turns into a monthly goal. And the weeks where or the days where we hit our goal, I notate and I figure out what it was that we did that day. Then that week, we look at the numbers. Okay, we hit or we missed. And if we hit, what did we do different this week than we didn't do the week before? See, there's no coincidences. It's just action. And we're slowly figuring that out. And, you know, the entire Private Money Club team is on to something really big that we're going to be talking about probably in the next few months that we're going to be launching, but it's going to be massive. Scary goals are scary. But when you break them down per day, they're really not that scary. They're kind of just like, okay, well, we missed it, but we only missed it by this. And, you know, when we hit that goal, this is what we did. So with all of your goals, when you have a day or a week or a month where you hit your goal, because you got to break them down that way. Okay. When you hit your goal, take note of what did you do? Did you make extra phone calls? Did you work an extra day? Did you not go surfing or not go snowboarding one day, or whatever you do, take note of that and then repeat that success week or that success day. It's just like social media, right? Tyler, who's our director of marketing, how he does everything with marketing is testing. Every day, every week, every month, he knows what worked and what didn't, and then he doubles down on the winners, the ones that work. And just remember, like, what works today might not work next month. You're always changing. But once you find a winner, you got to double down on that. If you got losers, why would you keep putting effort into the losers? Okay. If you got something that didn't work, why keep pouring energy, resources, and money into a loser when you have winners? But do you know your winners from your losers? Do you know how to track your KPIs, your key policy indicators? Okay. If you don't, then you need to figure that out. Because in marketing, in business, it all comes down to your wins and your losses. You learn from your losses and you duplicate your wins, but you got to know what your wins and losses are. So, you know, for everybody's goals, you want to write 3 policies by January 15th. You want to double your income. What do you have to do every day consistently and persistently to hit that particular target? And once you hit that target, what did you do to hit that week, that day, that month that you then can duplicate the next month? You see, that's the success formula. But here's some outside factors that throw a monkey wrench in. And we talked about this, but I want you to really take note of this as we go into, you know, the New Year's time, because you're going to be spending time with family and friends and all that good stuff. Who supports you and who doesn't? Who are the people that you want to be around that push you and give you? All know that flow state. You get in that flow state, you know what that feels like, right? It's just where you're just flowing. You're not even thinking. Sometimes, like when I do trainings or speeches, like I'm just in a flow state. It almost feels like a higher power, like God is coming through you, and it's portraying. What is your flow state? And then what messes your flow state up? I'll tell you, I bet you any money, it's the negativity. It's the negativity that from the outside that comes in and messes that up, isn't it? Because I know it is for me. So when you get around people, who are the people that bring you down and who are the people that prop you up? When you get on these wealth webinars, or you get on WTF, or you get on Ask Me Anything, or any of the trainings we do, are you propped up? Does it motivate you? Then why wouldn't you be here every single week? Why wouldn't you just make that part of your calendar? And then I know y'all, you know, there's excuses, there's things. Okay, so if you can't make it, then once you register, you get the recording. Why aren't you watching the recordings? I do this. I have my favorite YouTube channels, and I'll tell you what, I very rarely ever miss an episode because I got the little alerts button clicked at the top of the YouTube channel. So when a new video comes up, guess what? It pops up and I make time to watch it. And I know Shauna does this too. And I'm sure Stephen does this. Like, what is your thing that motivates you to get to the next day? Is there one talk? Like Matthew McConaughey did this talk at, I believe, Stanford. And in that talk gets me going every day. And there's another one from, I think he was a Marine, and he does a talk. How you do one thing is how you do everything. Where he talks about why is it that the Marines make their bed every day? Why is it that they shine their shoes every day? Like those, like insignificant things by most people, like making your bed, that's a waste of time. Shining my shoes, making sure my shoes are placed in the exact same place every night. Those are building habits, but that is exactly that. How you do one thing is how you do everything. I didn't come up with that. That's probably from the Navy SEALs or the military, but like, think of that. How you do one thing today is how you're going to do everything. So change the one thing. And we always say it with the money multiplier and with, BYOB, change one thing. And that's where your money goes first. And once you get used to doing that, then you learn the next thing. But why learn the end before you even start the beginning? Too many people start with the end in mind and they never get started in the beginning. So I just had a call today, and I guess I'm going to say he might even be on here. He's a great client of ours. He's in his second year of his policy. He just got his statement and he's running the math because he had kind of forgotten the things that we talked about in the beginning, which happens, right? Your mind will drift back to the old ways, the habit forming ways that you used to do things, which is usually maybe the wrong way to do it, especially when it comes to money. He kind of learned the right way to do this from his boss. His boss told him about what he was doing with the infinite banking concept. So he got on the phone, he started his policy for himself, and I think for one of his children. A year has gone by. Now, in that year's time, his mind, because he hasn't practiced and he hasn't kept trying to learn, he didn't show up to the wealth webinars, his mind went back to the old way. So when he got his policy statement, okay, and he got his premium due notice, he had to make the premium deposit. And he's looking at it and he couldn't make sense of why he was doing this. And I got on the phone with him right before this. And it was a great call. He was very receptive. And I said, you have forgotten every reason why you were starting to do this. I said, and he says, no, I'm just doing the math. I said, all I ever do is solve things with the math. You're not doing the math right. You're getting caught up in short-term thinking for a long-term problem. You wanted to solve long-term problems, but yet you're focused on a 1-year time frame, which is short-term. And once we went through the numbers and we got past 1 year, actually, once we got into the 3rd year, he started looking at this and he started saying, holy crap. Because before that, he was thinking, well, should I just surrender this? And maybe I shouldn't be doing this, which I said to him, if you want to do that, that's great. I got 10 people lined up that want to buy that policy because you can't even get it anymore. So that when I said that, it woke him up a little bit. He's like, whoa, well, yeah, I don't really want to do that, but I just need to make sense of the numbers. I said, you're never going to make sense of the numbers in a specially designed whole life in year 1 or even year 2. It will never make sense. It will always be a bad thing because you're not going to make any money in the 1st year and you're not going to make any money in the 2nd year. You're going to have access to money, but you might not have a net profit. But how many of you are willing to give up 2 years of gains to have gains for the rest of your life as long as you live? And to get those gains for the rest of your life without having to work any harder, any longer, or do anything different than what you already did by changing one thing? The answer would be a resounding 100%. Everybody would be like, oh my God, yes, I would give up 2 years. I'd give up 5 years to have, perpetual, uninterrupted compound interest for the rest of my life. If all I had to do is give up 3 years, what is that in the grand scheme of when I got 60 more years of gains and every year I have more money in it than I did the year before and I didn't do anything and there's no risk. It sounds so stupid in your head, right? Like, oh my God, who wouldn't do that? Well, you'd be quite surprised because a lot of people drift back to the old way of thinking and they look at it and they say, well, why would anyone do this? This is stupid. Why would I put money into this when I put 12,000 and I only have 10,000 that I can use? Okay. You're looking at the 1st year. And then I took them to the 2nd year and I said, okay, you put 12,000 in and now you got 12,573 to use. Well, that's still not a good return. Correct. You're not. It's not. Then I went to year 3 and I did the same thing and it was a little bit better, but still not great. And he says, yeah, but if I take a loan at 5%, I still haven't even made enough on the policy to make the amount that the insurance company is going to charge me, net return. And I said, exactly. I said, nobody does in this, but yet everybody seems to understand how this works. I said, see, what your thought process is you're playing the short-term thinking game and you're not looking at the big picture. And then I went to the 5th year and the 7th year, and then I went to the 10th year. I said, so do you see what you would have just given up by only focusing on the first couple of years? You would have given up that return. And he says, holy crap. And I said, not only that, I said, do you realize what else you would have given up? And then, I didn't say this, but I want to relay this because Shauna brought this up to me and I think it's very important. I want you all to think about what we just went through here in Buffalo with this blizzard. But not what me and Shauna went through, because we're sitting here, we're talking to you, we're fine. I want to talk about a story I read that brought me and my wife to tears. It was about a father, a baby, and the baby's mother. On Friday night, I believe it was, they ran out of formula. And the father, like any time, went out. It's probably just a short walk to the grocery store or the store to get the the formula and some bread, went out to go to the store to get the bread, and he never came home. They later found out that he froze to death. So I'm not trying to bring up a bad thing, but think about that. Something you do every day, and you go to do it one more time just to provide for your family, and you don't come home. It's a really sad thought. But let's just go back to this client that was playing the short game, just saying, oh, well, I didn't make any money in the first year. I'm not making any money in the second year. And then I'm going to talk about what I explained to him next. But think about that. Let's just say he was that dad that went out to support his baby and his wife, just get bread and formula, and he didn't come home. But what is going to come home is a check called a death benefit. A death benefit that will make sure that that family can do things they never could have done before. And I'm not saying this is the outcome we want, but folks, this is freaking reality. I've been doing this for 20 years, over 20 years. I've delivered so many death benefits, but you know what death benefit I'll never forget? The only one I'll never forget was the first one. And I remember I knew the client well. He was older, had a nice sized death benefit. I think it was like $500,000. And his wife didn't work. He was the sole breadwinner. He was an engineer, retired engineer, great man, great man. I would consider him, early on, one of my first mentors I ever had. His name was Bob. And I remember right before Bob passed away, he had me come over to the house, which I went over there often, but he sat me down, just me and him. His wife, wasn't home, and he was frail. You could tell, he was close. And he said to me, he says, listen, when I'm no longer here, I want you to tell Betty that she'll be okay, because if things me and you did, she will be okay. She will never have to worry about money again the rest of her life. Well, that day did come. Bob did go on to a better place called heaven. And I remember sitting there talking to Betty, and I said, Betty, I just want to relay something that Bob wanted me to tell you. Bob wanted me to let you know that you'll never have to worry about money again for the rest of your life. She didn't understand what that meant. She'd never run the finances in the house, but I just said, Betty, you'll never have to worry about money another day of your life. And to this day, I haven't talked to him much anymore, but I do know them. She still won't have to worry about money, because he planned for a day that none of us want to have happen, for a day that none of us know when it's going to happen, for a day that none of us ever can foresee happening in some cases, especially for some of you younger folks. This father, during the blizzard of 2022 that went out, I'm just going to judge based on the picture, couldn't have been a day over 30 years old. Well, that day happened a little too early for him. And I can only hope that he had a life insurance policy that does pay out. Now, everything we do with the infinite banking concept, we never talk about the death benefit, but for the first time, I think publicly, I'm going to talk about it, because it is probably single-handedly one of the more important things about what we do, but it's the more important thing that we never talk about. We never want to address. Matter of fact, we actually downplay it in most cases. We always talk about, oh, we're going to put the lowest death benefit on so you have the highest cash value. And that will never change, folks. But that lowest death benefit is still better than anything else out there, because anything else out there is nothing. So if you were that father walking to get formula and bread, and unfortunately you didn't come home, there's no way to replace somebody. There's no way to replace a loved one, but that check. Make sure that your family can be taken care of when you're off to a better place. So I don't mean to take the mode of this whole training down, but folks, listen, we never talk about it. We probably should. We probably should. See, there's not a day that I ever go out snowboarding like yesterday, or go surfing, or do all the stupid shit that I do day in and day out, that I ever worry about that day if I'm not going to come home. It would be a sad day, but if I don't come home, this family, everything around me, this house, this cat right here, Lazy Cash, they'll never, ever need for anything. And that's not because I want to go anywhere too soon, but I'm also going to live my life to the fullest. If somebody sent me a ticket and said, hey, Chris, I got a ticket to jump out of an airplane today, you in? I'm in. Push me. Just push me out of the damn plane. I'll jump myself. You don't need to push me. Just please make sure the parachute's on. The excitement sometimes gets a bit above me, because I know that no matter what, I've done the planning to make sure that my family and my future family that I don't even know, Vivi's kids, that maybe I do, maybe I don't know, will be taken care of because of the things I set in motion today. Folks, this is 2022, but the last week, what are you planning for? You got all these goals, but why not double down on your goals and make sure that in case something ever did happen to you, that's taken care of too. Like that legacy piece. Let's just get that out of the way. Let's not talk about it, but let's make sure the foundational pieces that we put in place for your financial future, for whatever your goals are, for doubling your income, selling 3 more policies and all these, let's make sure that before anything else, if we're taken out of the equation, if me, Shauna, Stephen are not here anymore, that our families are taken care of. I'm not trying to make this all about money, folks, and I don't want to glorify or vilify money at all. I simply want you to understand that it is an important factor. It's not quite air, but it's pretty close, because we can't survive without that tool in this society, in this world. Like, it's very difficult. Look around, folks. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, you put too much emphasis on money, you make money everything. No, I don't. Money's a freaking tool. I have been shoveling snow for 5 days. What would happen if I didn't have a shovel? What if I just forgot to get the shovel, right? I forgot the tool. I'm out there shoveling snow with my hands. How fun do you think that would be? Thank God I had a new shovel. Hell, I got 2 of them. Why have 1 when you can have 2? But like, that's the same thing here, folks. We're just talking about a tool, and that tool is called money. And money is what makes the world go around. Good, bad, or indifferent, doesn't matter. It's how you use it. We're not talking about how the evil people out there use it, like not looking too far past Washington, but let's not go there. Like, I'm focused on like how I use it to make sure that I can help kiddies that don't have homes, so that I can donate money to St. Jude and all these different, I don't even know how many different places I donate money to. It's silly. I don't even look anymore. I give them to Gabby. Gabby takes out the duplicates and we write checks. And it feels good to write those checks. But you know what? You know what those checks are? Money. They're a tool that puts food on plates for people during Thanksgiving and during the holidays, puts presents under trees for kids that can't have presents because their families just can't afford it, provides clean drinking water for people, provides money for research for children that have cancer. I mean, shit, I keep going. Make sure that these kiddies have litter and food at the shelter, 10 Lives Club, right? In our same place. Like, listen, folks, it's just a tool that we're focused on. But the tool has to be used in the proper way, has to be, in all your goals, every goal that every one of you has to use that tool. So if we're gonna focus on the tool called money, let's focus on what happens when we aren't here anymore. That's a secondary goal, but it could be your primary goal. It doesn't matter. But again, Shauna brought it up to me earlier, and I'm like, we never talk about the death benefit, like, blah, blah, blah. We don't sell life insurance, but you know what? It's exactly what we do. And we should start owning that. Every single client that starts with us for the infinite banking concept, we're making sure that when they're no longer here on this earth, their families have that tool. And in some cases, a whole hell of a lot of it. And hopefully then they do the same thing, just like the Rockefeller family. They start policies and they continue that legacy and continue creating their own banking system, and it perpetuates. It's kind of like compound interest, uninterrupted compound interest, folks. It's what we do every day. It's what these policies do. If you look at the first 2-3 years, you're going to be disappointed. But if you look at years 3 on, you're going to be falling out of your chair saying, how is that even possible? It's called mathematics, and math doesn't lie.
I want to hit on a couple of things. Well, on this, I want to change gears just a little bit, but what you're saying about the tool is we have a couple questions, and I want to hit on a couple of things too. So one says, which policy design do you believe is best for debt payoff for a policy that I can deposit monthly? And then at the same time, we can probably hit this side by side too, is like Blaine also wants to know the difference between 90-10 versus 60-40. And so we don't want to think about it even me, like in my own policy, I'm on year 3, and like I deposited my annual thing, and even myself, I was second guessing myself, and I freaking work here. Okay. So I also want to validate everybody's feelings when they kind of are not understanding stuff, or it seems like it's not how it's supposed to be. And ultimately I deposited my 3rd year annual lump sum because I do it annually, because it's compounding for the whole year rather than monthly. And I was like, why isn't my cash value changing? Like on the first thing that I got, it says like by year 3, I should be hitting, it was like 10,000. And I like really was waiting for that day where I would have like around above $10,000 cash value. And the way I built mine was called like a legacy 100. So it was built more for the long term. Whereas a lot of people like like Juan has debt. So that's like a short-term goal. So there's also, they're built for depending on like your lifestyle. So I don't know if you want to hit on that. And that might also go into why you'd do 90-10 or 60-40. But another thing too, at the same time, when I was like not understanding stuff, again, I work here, I hear this stuff every day. And still sometimes I'm just like, huh? But I actually did hold to the death benefit factor as something that at least made me feel good about it. Like, because of, and like my why at the end of the day, which I'm sure all of yous are like, is your family and the future. So like, if it doesn't make sense, I know, like I think about Harper and I do think about the death benefit, and that helps me, like helps anchor me back into the whole infinite banking thing making sense. And so if you want to hit on the best for debt payoff, especially if you can pay monthly, and then the difference between 90-10 and 60-40. And then also just hit on like why I kept my term life insurance as well, because again, it's important to me for my family. I had like I think I paid $19 a month to State Farm, and I had like a $70,000 or like term insurance or something like that. And I didn't cancel it, you know, just because I got into infinite banking with Chris and Brent and Hannah and everybody. So if you want to like round all of that out.
Yeah. So I'm glad you said that about term, because I still have term policies too. I have millions of dollars worth of term, and, you know, Dave Ramsey's never once sent me a card saying, good job. He only poo-poos on whole life in the IBC. So the other thing too, that's important about what you just said is there is a lot of talk out there. What's better? What's the best plan design? There is no best plan design. So right off the bat, that's a loaded question with an unloaded answer, because there is no best policy design. There's only the best policy design for your particular needs and goals. 60-40, 10-90, 30-70, you know, 75-25. There's tons of different designs, and we have different product designs that we do for specific goals. So debt payoff. Well, this is a difficult one for me because I was severely in debt when I started this. And the policies that I used to pay off all my debt were, because back in the day, all we had were 60-40s. That's Nelson Nash's original model. That's what a lot of my policies are 60-40, 60 paid up additions, 40 base, you know, which is a slower start in the beginning, but better in the long run. A lot of my early policies are that. And I climbed out of a significant amount of debt using 60-40 policies. So for me, I would sit there and say, it doesn't matter what your policy design is for debt. They're all going to get the job done. I would almost say for debt, it really depends on the debt load and what you have. I think one of the best designs we have right now, and we haven't even really launched it to the public because it's something we've been working on, but we have something similar. It's One America. Okay. Because One America by far is the best company. And I'll go on the line saying this. You guys can all hold me on this one someday in the future. One America is the best company. Mutually owned insurance company. Even though they're smaller than Mass, they're smaller than Penn, they're smaller than Guardian, they're one of the best. And they're one of the best because they are 150% committed to the infinite banking concept. Everybody at that company understands the infinite banking concept. They know what it is. They know how it works, and they know how to design products to do that. But where One America may not be the best is it's not like the Mass Mutual Heck Fee where it gives you 92%. Well, at least now it's not. In the future, next year, 2023, we do have one that will get you 92 to 93% year one access to your cash with One America. But in the past, that wasn't possible. We would max those policy designs out at like 85% year one. And most people wouldn't, you know, if we showed them that design against maybe a Lafayette Life Slayer, or which is a 35-70 or 35-65. And that's one of the best policy designs for high early cash value. It even beats the Mass Mutual Heck Fee, which was the reigning champ for the longest time for high early cash value. So the Lafayette Life Slayer is 65% PUA, 35% base. It's a really good mix. It's a little off of the 60-40, but that policy design gets you 92% year one and super strong growth the entire curve of that policy. But then you're going to get other gurus out there and other people that say 90-10 is the best. Well, let me give you some news about 90-10. I don't have a single 90-10 policy, and I have 9 policies. Brent doesn't have a single 90-10 policy, and he has 20 some policies. Why don't I have one? Well, it's not for, I can write one today. I can do one right now. I have a 85-15 because I wanted to have one to see how it works. And I don't like it. I really don't. There's nothing wrong with the 90-10 except for in the future, You've put so much emphasis on the high early cash value the first couple of years, you're going to give so much of that back in the later years. And not only that, to do a 90-10, and forget about dump-ins, because you cannot, and I'm going to go on the record here. If any of you can show me how to do a 90% PUA, 10% base with a big dump-in, I'll give you a cookie and I'll give you $100 too. You can't. It will mech every time. You cannot do it. And none of the people that say that that's all they do, and I'm not going to give names, but they know who they are. And all of you know who I'm talking about that are asking this question about 90-10, because you know who the culprit is that's pitching 90-10s out there. They're not doing it either. I know, because I work with the same people at the same companies that are doing it. So when I say, well, how is this company doing a 90-10 with a dump-in? They're saying they're not. Those ones that they're doing dump-ins are like 30-70s. But the client doesn't know the difference because they've branded this 90-10 thing as like the ultimate. Oh, it's the highest cash value. Great. Until you put a dump in, then they can't do a 90-10. Then it's got to be like a 30-70, maybe a 75-25. Well, what we've done is we've taken a different approach to this. We want high early cash value, but we also want strong growth with strong stability and as little term insurance on the rider as possible, because term costs money and it gets more expensive as you get older. So I know I'm not dodging your question about this. I'm trying to help you better understand why what you're believing in when you say 90-10 is being like the ultimate, it's just branding, it's just marketing. You're just buying into it. One company's idea because they're the ones that kind of started with that and saying it's the best. It isn't. And I'll go on the record and I'll prove it left and right. If you do a dump-in, it's out the door. You can't call any of the companies, talk to the right people in the bully-colly divisions. They can't do it either. But what we've managed to do, so let me kind of talk about future. I've already done a couple because we can get an exception, but we're hoping in 2023 to be able to launch this. One America, the best company for the infinite banking concept. What we're going to be able to do, and this is going to be on a case-by-case thing because it's got to be the right thing, on larger policy designs, 50,000 or more, what they're allowing us to do, actually, I don't want to say what they're allowing us to do. What they're going to make an exception and allow us to do for certain cases is they're going to allow us to do the first year with a dump-in as a 90-10. Year one, because that's why people want 90-10, right? Is the first year. They want all the cash value up front. They want 90, 92%, which is about the most you're going to get in the first year so that they have the most to use. And I understand that. I'm a real estate investor. Like if I put money in a policy and I want to lend money to Shauna, I want the most amount of money to lend. So of course that makes sense in the first year. But I'm also not willing to give up future years growth, future years stability and support for short-term gains. Does that make sense? We already talked about this, right? With that early client. So what then we do is in the second year through the 10th year, we flip it to be anywhere between 75-25 or as much 60-40, depending on how we want to design it. We can be flexible, but we obtain that first year's high early cash value without sacrificing future years growth, future years stability, and without needing a giant term policy on anytime after the 7th year. You see, folks, we've cracked the code with this. Is it ready? No. Is it getting there? Yes, we're super close. We're still kind of, noodling this thing around with the company, but like once this is done, that will be the ultimate. You might see most of us just doing One America after that, because One America is the lowest loan interest rate with no plans on raising it, as I've heard already. They also are one of the best companies from customer service. I love Lafayette Life, no disrespect, but their loan interest rate's higher. Mass Mutual just raised their loan interest rate. Northwestern Mutual, don't even use that name. So anyway, go ahead, Sean. I went on a tangent.
So it's another kind of like loaded question because all of us are different. So Blaine asks like, what's your favorite structure and why? And then Michael Turley asks, can you talk more about dump-ins and how they work and when you would want to do them and whatnot. So we're all different. So it's like, there is no one policy that's going to benefit us all. And I know that like, for me, it just depends on where you're at. Like when I chose mine, I didn't have enough to really lend on real estate. So I was just like thinking, I just know that I should be doing this. I want to do this. And I want it built for the long run. Like to me, it sounds better to me to have a graph go like that. And so that's the thing that I chose for my daughter and our first policies.
My answer is different today than it would have been a year or 2 years ago, because a year or 2 years ago, by far, my favorite plan, the one that I own, three of them now, is the Mass Mutual HECV plan. Okay. And that is a 60-40 design, but it's a 60-40 design and a unique chassis that gives high early cash value. But now Mass Mutual has begun the process of raising interest rates. Plus, they've begun the process of making it more difficult to take loans. So I now no longer think that's my favorite plan. And I'm trying to explain this is what I say now might change next year, but I will tell you my all-time favorite plans, the ones I've never had issues, are my 60/40s. I've got a 60/40 with Security Mutual. I've got a 60/40 with One America. I've got a 60/40 with, I have a 60/40 with Mass Mutual. Those are all my best performers, but they didn't have the highest early cash value, but they're my favorite policies. But moving forward, if and when we get this One America design, and it will work best with dump-ins, I just want to be clear. So this one plan that I'm mentioning, this new hybrid 90-10 year one, 75-25 or 64 every other year, that will become my new plan design. Because it gives people what they want, high early cash value, but then it doesn't sacrifice anything in the future. So that will be my favorite design. And that will be the one that I use for just about anything other than retirement planning. Because if we're doing something for SLR, supplemental retirement income planning, the 60/40 is always going to be one of the best ones for that, or some variation. Another one that I love is the Lafayette Life Slayer, because it's just a good all around performer. But now that Lafayette raised the interest rate on loans, most people aren't going to see that, but they did on new issues. Like that kind of throws that one out the window a little bit. So I keep coming back to One America, any design that you're going to do being my favorite company. And then this new design, if you're doing a dump-in, would be that. So the second part of the question, I think it was a different person, is when a dump-in, anytime you have the means to do a dump-in is my answer. I will show you over and over and over again. Stephen could even put it up on the screen, which once I'm done here in a second, Stephen, if you wanted to show the differences, you can. But the dump-in will always get your policy off to a really fast start. Just think about it. It's just mathematics. Again, forget about my opinion. It's math. You do a dump-in. I don't care what it is, 50 grand on a policy, you're putting 10 grand in. Let's just use that. You now have 50 grand earning interest and dividends from day one. And that perpetual compounding interest will never stop. So you literally just supercharged your policy from day one. The only sacrifice you have to make with dump-ins is we got to put a term rider on. So sometimes, depending on how old you are or what your medical underwriting is, that term rider can be detrimental to the policy. So if you're older, we don't want a term rider. So if like we get a lot of people like 65 to 75 coming to us and they want to do a dump-in, and most times we're telling them, don't do the dump-in. Let's take that money you were going to dump in. Let's just lend that or do whatever you're going to do with that. Get that money working for you, and then just do the policy with just the regular annual or monthly deposits. Because the term rider, the thing that those 90-10 policies all require, is expensive when you get older, and it only gets more expensive. So the answer to the dump-in is always. There's never a time not to use a dump-in unless the term rider exceeds or costs too much. And then we're just going to be honest with you until you don't do the dump-in, because that's just how it is. So I love dump-ins, but I like them without dump-ins too. And if you don't do a dump-in, most of the designs we're going to do, we're going to build the plan without a term rider, because we don't want the drag, right? It'd be like you got a fast rate, you got a Porsche. Let's just take a Porsche 911 Turbo, because you all know that car. And now what we're going to do is we're on the front of the car that's nice and aerodynamic. We're just going to put a big, almost like a plow in front of it. Okay. And we're gonna then go out and try to go as fast as we can. You got all this drag because you got this wind hitting this giant plow. It's drag. That's what a term rider is. The term rider is drag. Okay, because it has a cost. It's going to impact your returns. And if we can build it without a term rider, darn right we're going to. And even if it means you're going to have less cash value early on, we know for a fact it's going to benefit you long run.
Would also the answer be like you don't have a favorite policy design, or do you have a favorite policy design and why for yourself?
I don't, because I have different needs. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Different needs. So there is no favorite policy design. You see, I just changed my mind 3 different times. So you try to answer that. It's because like one policy design works best for lending money because I get the early cash value. That would be that 90-10 to 75-25 one. And I don't have one of those yet, but darn right, I'm going to. The other policies that were debt payoffs were 60/40s. Those things worked great for what I did with them. And I will always say that they will work great. So I don't have a favorite. But what I do have a favorite is when I talk to a client and I figure out what their needs and goals are instantly, and Steven's the same, and Gabby's the same, and Joe and Jason and all of our team. Once you tell them your needs and goals, boom, we're going to have 1, maybe only 2 designs that are going to work best for you. And if you don't want to take our advice and you want to go shop it to somebody else and they want to sell you based on a false promise or a quick sales pitch, that's great. But we're going to recommend what we know works for your particular problem, because that's what we're doing, right? We're solving problems. And the other thing we haven't even talked about here, and this happens all the time, is all we've talked about is a damn product. We haven't even talked about what really freaking matters and what really is going to make you wealthy, set your family up in the future. And that is the process. The infinite banking concept, folks, is not the whole life policy. It's a process of taking back the banking function. So what the hell good would the policy be making me 5 or 6% if I didn't ever take that money out of the policy and loan it out on Private Money Club at 12, or pay for my vehicles out in the garage and recapture the money that I would have normally paid on those vehicles, or paid off debt and then recaptured the money I used to pay. So that's what matters.
It kind of goes back to what Steven said earlier about when you when people hold on to the plan design numbers, like the 90-10 or 60-40, it's kind of like making that goal and being like, I want to make passive income, but like, what does that mean? Like you have to like know who you are and how you operate, because the infinite banking process also relies on you, the operator, because like the sign behind Steven, be your own bank, like essentially it's you. So you also need to know what you're using it for and how.
Yes.
And why. Because it's not going to solve your problems. It's going to be the tool. It's going to be the shovel. It's like Chris's shovels outside. They're not, just because he has them doesn't mean the driveway is going to get shoveled. He's got to go out there and do it.
Good point. I love that. Yeah. Nobody actually took advantage of that perfect training course I had for all the snow throwing, techniques I was going to teach, but I went out there and I still did it. So with this, I'm going to turn it over to Steven and Shauna. I got to run off to an appointment, but folks, I want you to all know this one thing before I leave today's training. And the training's not over. They've got a bunch of really good stuff, but I want you to really understand that everything we do as a company, as our culture, and as our serving purpose, our mission statement, if you will, is solve problems. We are here to solve your money problem. We are not here to sell you a whole life policy. We're not here to sell you a 3-day training. We're not here to sell you Private Money Club. Every one of them are built and designed to solve your problem. So if you keep thinking that your problem is going to get solved by buying a product, you're wrong. The product isn't going to solve the problem. Okay. If I buy the shovel and I leave it in the garage, is my driveway getting shoveled? No, it's the process of me going out and doing those awesome snow throwing techniques that I've learned over the years of being a snowboarder that gets the driveway shoveled. Okay. It's you folks applying the process to solve your problems. The product, it helps. Uninterrupted compound interest and all the stuff the product does helps, but it's the process that will get the job done. And it's the process you need to focus on. Stop worrying about the policy design. What's the best, 1090 or 60-40? Stop. Start learning the damn process. Start learning how the process works, how to actually make your money go to work, and how to do that consistently and persistently. And we've got all the tools to do that. But every one of them, and for every one of you, it's about solving whatever money problems you have. And that is it. So with that being said, folks, it's been an honor, a privilege. Happy New Year's to you all. I'm going to turn this over to Shauna and Steven. I got to run.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah. Steven, real quick, I do want to hit on the Mass Mutual question, because I have Mass Mutual and I just pulled up my dashboard real quick to see what it says. And it's still reading right now. Like I'm eligible to take up a loan to $11,325 at 5% variable interest rate as of today. So it kind of could also be like, if you do have Mass Mutual and you do have a need for it, if like Steven said, if there's been like a notice that it's going to be raised to 5.7, it might be that situation where we talked about getting the equity out of your home at a lower interest rate. Like maybe pull a loan today, because like today it says 5%, but don't pull it if you don't need it.
I think it changed it in 2023 at the start of the new year, but we'll see. And to Chris's point, Nelson Nash, I believe, going to make that a goal to finally read that book this year. But Nelson Nash said it best that everyone should have two businesses: the business where you make your money, and then your business of banking. So you can't look at this policy as like a magic tool, like you guys are saying, that's going to solve all your problems. That's not what it is at all. You need to go out there, write down the goals and how you're going to generate income. So whether that's additional income streams, whether that's making more money in your business that you're in now, whatever that is, that's your hustle. That's your income. That's your wealth. That's where the policy is a warehouse of wealth. And I've seen a couple comments on here that people are getting that very confused. And I got a text earlier, very, very similar, that said, frankly, the numbers don't look good. I said, have you reviewed the illustration? Yes, thank you. I looked it over, and frankly, the numbers don't look good as an investment strategy. Well, no, SHIT. It's not an investment strategy. It's a warehouse of wealth. So that just tells me that person has not been on wealth webinar. They have not watched the webinars. They haven't watched the trainings we put out. Just like Dexter said a few minutes ago, it took him almost 3 years of watching webinars and reading books and following us before just recently, earlier this year, it clicked for him. And Dexter, I mean, that's 100%. I mean, I was with Chris for probably 6 or 8 months before I finally even said, okay, let me actually look at what you're doing with this, because I thought it was just a gimmick. Like, I come from a jaded background where I think everything's a gimmick. And once I actually learned about what IBC is and using policies this way, I was like, wow, this is actually the most non-gimmicky thing in the world, but I can see how it comes off gimmicky because of all the stuff it does for you. It's almost unbelievable. And that's what we hear so often is it's too good to be true, or I don't really believe it because it's, how can that work that way? And it does. I mean, that's it. It's just simple math. You can look at any policy. You can look at any illustration. You can talk to anybody that's had a policy for more than 2 or 3. It might take a couple of years for it to click, but anybody that's had a policy longer than 2 or 3 years, you will never. I mean, I say this all the time to people, but when you look at the insurance companies we do business with, our brokerage money multiplier has one of the lowest cancel rates in the entire country, meaning people that start policies keep them. They don't lapse. They don't cancel them. They don't return them. We have one of the strongest in the entire country. Over 92% of our clients that have policies for over a year start additional policies. So if it wasn't working, why would people start more of them? So the proof is in the pudding. And it is one of those things where sometimes it almost is a leap of faith at the beginning. If you don't have the time to spend hours and hours and hours and hours reading and learning and watching and asking the questions and getting comfortable, you got to jump into it. And then, like some other people said in the comments, you earn as you learn, you do it as you go. But you got to take that jump to start with. So, we also tell people a lot start small. There's nothing wrong with that either. I mean, if you're thinking of putting, $50,000 a year in, maybe don't, maybe start with 10,000 a year. Or if you're thinking of putting 10 a year in, maybe don't start with 5,000 a year or whatever it is, but do what's comfortable or small. Prove the concept to yourself or those negative people in your family that you guys are all talking about that tell you can't be done and all that stuff, and prove them wrong. I mean, it goes back to the goals. And so that's some good stuff.
Yeah.
So I can read this question.
Yeah, I'd love to hit that question too. I think I have an idea of it a little bit too.
So it just says my husband's policy was just started with a large dump in, and there's a term rider required in order to keep that dump in amount. We asked if we should lower the dump in order to get rid of the term rider, but was advised to keep it on. I'm still trying to understand this, especially after hearing you say try to avoid term rider as much as possible.
Okay, my question to help, I want to understand it myself, so I'm going to be everybody's advocate today. Is the term rider just mean term insurance to support the policy?
Yeah.
So like essentially probably if he's making a big dump in, it probably is also accompanied with a big annual payment and a big death benefit. And like, once you sign that paper and you deposit that money, like that is due to you, Brandy, like probably if your husband passes like the next day. I think the term riders are set in place to help offset that too. I don't really know.
So what happens is when we design a policy, we build a policy with 3 different types of money going into it. So you have your base premium, you have your paid up additions premiums. So then when we talk about like 40-60 and 90-10 and all these different splits, that's what it's referring to. And so the way to look at that is if you have a rocket ship, if you think about a rocket ship, like I live in South Florida, we watch them take off to the north of me all the time up in Cape Canaveral. And so when you watch that rocket ship take off, there's all kinds of smoke and fire coming from it. And there's big rocket boosters that are on the rocket ship itself. And those boosters are what get it up into space. So to get up into space, it's fighting gravity, it's fighting atmospheric pressure and all the shit that goes into that. I'm not a rocket scientist. All right. So, but to get up there, it takes a lot of power. So there's a lot of fuel, a lot of burn, a lot of energy, right? So that's what gets that thing up. But once it gets past the atmosphere into space, that gravity and everything's gone. And then those rocket boosters actually fall off. And Elon Musk invented those things to come back down to land, which is, again, mind-blowing shit. But so those rocket boosters come back down so they can use them again. But nonetheless, that rocket itself doesn't need those boosters anymore. They fall off, but that rocket keeps going. it can orbit in space for forever, right? Probably. I mean, satellites go up there and they orbit forever until they
Well,
fall
and
out.
it's worth it. It's worth getting the satellite up there, right?
You got to
Like,
get
it's
it up
worth
there
getting
one
the
way or
rock up
another,
there.
right?
So
that's
by
what
any means.
So that's the paid up additions. The paid up additions are those rocket boosters. Once they're no longer needed because the policy is now efficient because of compounding interest, those paid up additions fall off, and then just the base premium will keep you in orbit forever and ever and ever and ever. So that's why when you see most of our designs, it has the base premium and the paid up additions for the first 10 years. And then after 10 years, the paid up additions fall off because we don't need them anymore. And now you're getting those 30, 40, 300, 400% returns on your money each year just from the base. So it's no longer needed. So the term, so when we build a policy with paid up additions and base, we're maximizing the cash value that's available, and we're maximizing growth in relation to the death benefit that's on that policy. The IRS, the United States government, they regulate whole life insurance policies. So they set limits and terms on how much money can go into a policy, how much cash value a policy can have in ratio to the amount of death benefit that's on that policy. And if you were to put too much money into the policy and not enough death benefit, then it does what's called MEC the policy. MEC, M-E-C, it stands for Modified Endowment Contract. And what that means is the policy is built as a whole life insurance contract. A whole life contract has a lot of benefits, such as asset protection. It's protected against lawsuits and bankruptcies and judgments. It's also tax-free growth. So all the money that's compounding within the policy is 100% tax-free. You'll never pay money on any of that growth. We can take loans out tax-free. That death benefit will be paid out tax-free. However, if you were to MEC that policy by putting too much money into it with not enough death benefit, then it's no longer a life insurance contract. So all of those benefits go away. And a MEC, a modified endowment contract, is taxable. It doesn't grow the same way. The death benefit becomes taxable. So you lose all the benefits of doing this in the first place. So that's why you never want that to happen. But the only way to get all of that money in there and that real high gross or that high cash value is to have enough death benefit to support that. But we don't want to put more base death benefit into that thing because, again, then it's going to be too much drag and we'll never get into space. And then you just have a normal standard old life insurance policy like Dave Ramsey rants about that are so bad, which I agree with. I would never own one of those. So we got to put the term insurance on there to give you that extra death benefit to allow the banking part of the policy to do what it does and grow and explode for you and get into space. And so at the end of the day, yes, you want as little term on the policy as needed. So when you look at our designs, if you really go in and look at them, it'll show you what the MEC limit is. And the MEC limit's always changing every year too, but we go right up to the MEC limit and then we put just enough term insurance on there to get it above the MEC by like literally $1. Like you'll see the MEC and the amount we put on there is $1 difference. So as efficient as possible, but it has to be on there for this thing to work that way. Otherwise it's going to MEC it or you're not going to be able to get the money. It's not going to grow. It's not going to be efficient and all that stuff. So yes, you want to put it as little as possible, but the term is required in a lot of these designs, especially with the dump ins. So you might ask yourself, well, why don't I just don't do a dump in then? Well, then where's that money going to sit? At a traditional bank, and we're back to square one, where it's not doing shit for you. It's making the banker rich. It's making the banks billions of dollars, and you're making the 0.1% in your savings account back its phase one. So of course you want to get into the policy however you can. We just hacked the system. That's all we didn't do it. Really, Nelson Nash did it. And I'll learn more about that when I read the book this year. But the bottom line is we hacked the system of life insurance. And guess what? The government, the IRS is okay with it. Why? Because they all do the same thing. The wealthy, the politicians, they all use these policies. So they're not going to change that law. There's no other countries in the world that do this. Canada kind of, but Canada doesn't allow dump-ins. We have people all the time that reach out to us from Australia, New Zealand, Europe, Sweden, to Swiss Alps. Those people in the Swiss Alps, Switzerland, they want to do all kinds of crazy. They can't even do this. They literally have their own banking system over there, but they can't even do that. There's no other countries. Good old United States of America, of course, they allow us to do this. We just found out the way to do it. That's all.
And I was just saying in the comments too, Brandy said it was a really great explanation. And like, it's just, when we're all at the end of the day, when we're being our own bank, we're caring for ourselves. So by any means, like you're taking care of yourself. So, however it's been designed, and those term riders are there to benefit you, even though it might seem like an expense or something like that. It's not.
Yeah. And Steve said, well, could you explain the difference in like this or buy term and invest the difference? 98% of term policies never pay out. So all that money you're paying into a term policy is gone.
Mm-hmm.
It will expire at some point. So if I get a term policy at 30 and I turn a 30-year term and I turn 60 years old, that thing's gone. Yeah, maybe I can renew it. Maybe it has guaranteed renewability, but do you know what the cost of insurance is at that age for a high death benefit? It's astronomical. I mean, it's in the thousands of dollars if you want to. So you're throwing all that money away. And so it's either going to pay out or not, and all that money's gone. So why would you do that? It just never made sense to me. But if you compare that against the normal whole life policy, I guess I get it, because a normal whole life versus term is much more expensive. It takes years and years and years and years for the cash value to build up. I mean, I've seen normal whole life policies that are in year 11 and 12 before what ours accomplish in year 2. Like, it's that big of a difference. And even once they get to that point, 11, 12, the companies that they're with, their direct recognition. So when they borrow the money out, their loan rates are so high. There's all these different problems that it just doesn't work for banking. So when you look at a true banking policy versus a term policy, I mean, it's not even close. It's like finding a 7-year-old T-ball baseball player and comparing them to like, Alex Rodriguez or some professional player that makes billion. Like, it's not even a comparison. It's just financial education. There's different levels. There's different levels in everything in life, but financial education is like nothing I've ever seen before. Because ask any multimillionaire, hey, if you were to lose everything today, is that a problem? No, it's no problem. I could build it back like that. Because once you do it the first time, you learn what to do. It's all about financial education and financial IQ. And then from there, it doesn't matter. Once you master that, the world is your oyster, as they say. Super true. And it's just math, Steve, also with that, the term, it's just math. So I could show you our policy and what it could do for you. And, over time, you could see how it's not even close. We got a couple more minutes left, but we can round this out. But basically, rely on us. If you don't have anybody in your close network, and that's why like Private Money Club is really great too. Is we learn so much from each other. And to me, I've heard in this one book, it was like we don't buy iPads because of what an iPad can do. We buy like iPads because the other people who have iPads make us feel like we should, or something like that. I can't really remember how it went, but we're here to support each other. And by doing all the things that we're doing, we're inspiring each other. And that to me is the best. It's like we can analyze what a whole life banking policy really is on paper. But to me, when the rubber meets the road is when I know what Dexter's doing with his. And then I'm like, oh, I want to, take a note from him, or what Tess is doing or Steven's doing or whatever. That's like, to me, real life. And I'm always also thinking that everybody's trying to hurt us in some way. And I feel like can't trust the media or whatever. So like, I kind of think like when people are downing whole life, it's to make you be stuck where you don't want to be. So break out. Yeah, absolutely. Here's an important question. Should people still pay off credit cards or wait in cash from policies for new opportunities? And 100% get rid of the credit card debt. Debt is the worst thing when you enter recessionary times and tough times like we have ahead. And so you want to clear out the debt and then just start building up again from there. But 1000% pay off the debt, even in good times with credit card debt. I mean, unless you have some 0% cards, which I would still say pay off, but even in normal times, credit cards, think about it. If you're paying 18% on a credit card and you're making a great return of 12 or 15% on a private loan, you're still losing 3 to 5%, so get that debt paid off and then get ready from there. But yeah, that's in my opinion, and I've talked to Chris a lot about this over the last few weeks, this month, and any debt you have, just let's get that taken care of ASAP. And with credit cards, I've shifted. So I used to pay for everything on my debit cards and stuff. And I shifted, and I definitely use my credit cards for everything, but I pay my credit card off at the end of the month. So like I have this
game with myself. So it's December right now. Like when I go on Amazon, which God knows how much I spend on Amazon because I am ordering shit every single day. Same with my cashback, like just regular credit card that I use for grocery shopping and gas. I am always looking at that statement. The year to date interest is 0. And I run all my money through them, but I pay them off at the end of the month. And I had year to date, like I've done this for years because at one time I had $1,300 just rolling like credit card debt that I just could not freaking get off my plate. And $1,300 is not a lot, but like once I got out of there, I was like, I'll never get here again. I had 0%, like 0 interest paid year to date on my credit cards, and then actually like $564 cash back. So I actually made those credit cards pay me this year. And that's how it has to be done or should be done.
Yeah, here's one more. Brittany said, so we have small debts with low interest rates. We thought about using the policy for these, but the interest rate would be higher through the policy. And so you're looking at the 5% that the interest that the insurance company charges Brandy. Let's say you have 3% loans. If you actually do the math, especially if the policy is like after year 2 or 3, even a brand new policy, you're still kind of right there with it. But we've done videos and they're on YouTube where we've actually done the math on that, and using the policy even to pay off 0% loans, actually in the long run, still you come out ahead using the policy loan, even at a higher rate, like even 0%. So you will come out ahead. It just needs to be mapped out properly. So you get with your mapping team on that. But and the policy might need to be efficient, like in its 3rd year or so, but it will come out ahead even in that scenario.
Perfect.
So just wanted to clarify that. There's weird things that can play tricks on your mind. And, you know, if you guys have ever seen like the presentation we do on the money multiplier, we say like, do you think you can make money while paying 6% and only earning 4%? And then you show how that works out and you actually make money paying 6 and earning 4. It's the exact same concept. So but we've done videos on that, and it opens your mind. You're like, wow, it's just, you don't know what you don't know, or what you never learned before.
I definitely, I know that a lot of people use their policies for investing, like private lending and stuff like that, where they're making a return. But I also think at the very minimum, think of it as almost like a way of getting like a discounted credit card. So like, let's say your washer and dryer take a shit and you've got like a Lowe's credit card, and it's like, go buy a new washer and dryer, like even with a Lowe's credit card, pay it off. And then if you have to pay it over 3 months, you're paying 5% rather than paying the Lowe's 18, like, or 25%. Like just discount yourself, like just live your life and use it with you. It's like that get out of jail free card. I consider it like a 5% credit card also, which like doesn't exist.
Anything else? Dividends are declared once a year, Oscar. They just kind of, all the companies just come out with their dividends. So they usually do it towards the end of the year, the 4th quarter. Deborah said, what's your opinion on HELOCs? Yeah, I mean, just it's the same for a HELOC as any other time. You just want to look at what you're using the money for, what the spread is, what the interest rate is that they're offering you, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I have heard with HELOCs, it's like if you have a use for it, do it. If you don't have a use for it, just wait until you do, and then engage then. Just
like credit cards. I mean, you know, they always say stay away from consumer credit cards, like department store cards and things like that, because that's just going to be nothing but, you know, you're spending money, you're wasting money, you're putting stuff on credit you shouldn't. But can you use credit cards in smart ways? Absolutely. I mean, one of the first house flips I ever did was on an Amex card, and we earned so many Sky Miles from it. We flew for free for like 3 years afterwards. So there's nothing wrong with using credit cards and any kind of debt if you're doing it the right way. Perfect. Well, Happy New Year, everybody. We will see you in 2023. Thank you guys for all the support and the really nice things you said in the comments today. Yes. All right. Thanks, guys. See you in 2023. Thanks, Shauna.
Bye.
All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. We're putting up tons of them, but I think if you like this one, you'll probably like that video as well. Not only that, I've got a book that I created, Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery, where we actually show you what the wealthy do in the game they play with money. I want you to have that for free. And if you want to know about all my new videos coming up, click that alert button. Actually, smash that alert button, and you'll be notified every time we put a new video. So we'll see you on the next episode.